Hey, friends, welcome to our first episode of Strip Club Talk with Jade and Danny. That is Jade. I am Danny. And as I say, this is our first episode. We plan on doing this every week. We're going to release a show every week on YouTube on Friday at 3 p.m. So make sure you subscribe to Jade, subscribe to me, subscribe to both of us. And you know that whole thing, hit the bell notifications, all that stuff. But anyway, we're going to do this every week. And Jade, you have been an entertainer for over 10 years. Am I right?
Correct.
And you've been what, like Las Vegas? You've worked in Miami. You've worked all over. But you make your main home in Diamonds Cabaret in Dayton, Ohio.
Yes, I do.
Okay. I am Danny Meyers. I have been DJing for a total of 45 years, 25 in the strip club business. I have pretty much stayed most of my career in Dayton, Ohio at Diamonds Cabaret, so we get to work together a lot. That's a little bit about who we are. What I want to do on this show is there's some questions that I have for entertainers that I've never known the answer to. You probably in this business for a long time have questions for your DJ that we've never asked. So this is kind of a little Q&A between the two of us. And Jade, I want to talk to you first about why new entertainers fail, and not necessarily just new entertainers, why entertainers fail. I think one of the reasons why a lot of entertainers, I mean, it's not because they're not pretty. I've seen a lot of gorgeous people fail. What it is getting people out of their comfort zone. A lot of our new entertainers are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're not used to talking to people that are 30, 40, and 50. So what they do is they hang with the young customers. And as we all know, the young customers don't really have the money usually. Sometimes they do, but usually they don't. So, Jade, what I want to ask you is how would you coach a young entertainer how to get out of their comfort zone, talking to that young guy and move up and start talking to the guys 30, 40, 50? How do you break that comfort zone and maybe some icebreakers on conversations and things?
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those things when you're, between the ages of 18 to even 22, sometimes you just have that fallback because you're comfortable and you guys are the same age, you click on certain levels because you are both, very young.
Mm.
So what I like to tell girls who are, kind of stuck in that rut is that chances are you're just intimidated because you don't know what they're going to say. You might feel like they think you're too young, and that you might not have enough good conversation for them or knowledge, who knows. But the good thing is that they're there to see you. And chances are they're loving looking at the young girls anyway. So for me, I always say a good icebreaker is just coming in with direct questions instead of letting them control the conversation. You do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's best to come in knowing what you're going to say, introducing yourself, forcing them to either shake your hand or immediately introduce themselves, so they know that you're in control. Ask them where they're from, why they're coming in tonight. Maybe they're celebrating their birthday. And then try not to leave much space in that dialogue. So as soon as they answer, you want to come up following with another question, and don't give them the option to say no, really. And if they're not ready, know when it's time to leave the table and try to learn the best way to close.
Mm-hmm.
Either closing with that dance and getting them to really find interest in you, or knowing when it's time to go because they're not interested. But I mean, if you want to, you can always educate yourself a little bit more if you feel like maybe you guys won't be able to click. But I mean, the club is not really the place for in-depth conversation sometimes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're bubbly and you're fun and you're entertaining, chances are they're going to love you. It's just getting over that intimidation factor that you have, that wall you put up by yourself is really the hardest part.
Yeah. What about because I know some entertainers do this, they will ask the customer, is this your first time here? And that kind of establishes the next part of the conversation. If they say yes, it's our first time here, you basically act like a tour guide. You're not really selling yourself as much. Well, you're not appearing to sell yourself as much as you're appearing to sell the club. Say, oh, well, let me tell you about this. We got this stage over here. We're over there. I'm going to be up on this stage by the way, in about 6 or 7 songs. Up there, we got the room where we do the private dances. We got a couple of different styles of dances, and then you can go on with the prices, kind of a thing. But you're not really saying, I want to do a dance for you. These are the prices. You're actually more like the tour guide. Would you say that's a decent idea to do?
Yes. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I said everything that I said and I forgot the most important part, which is that you ask them, have you been here before? That is definitely one of the first questions after you get the introduction out of the way, because that is a perfect time to where if they are new there, you want to explain everything and how it works inside those 4 walls. And a lot of times they appreciate that, especially if they haven't been there, because then it gives them an idea of what they might want to be doing. And then sometimes even if you leave them with that and say, I'll come back later, they think about you because they're like, wow, she didn't immediately, pressure me into walking upstairs with her. She kind of planted that. Well, in my mind, I planted that seed. And
Mhm.
he's thinking, oh, I'm going to go with her because she educated me. She made me feel comfortable. And then later he'll think of you when he's ready.
Mhm. And you never start off with just walking up to somebody and say, "Do you wanna dance?"
Right.
99.9% of the time, you're going to hear, "No, not right now,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
later."
Yeah.
So,
I
a
think
and
about the
maybe
only time you can do that is maybe when it's like 2 a.m. and he's already tipsy and ready or she.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Okay, I got one more question for you, and then I'm gonna let you pick my brain a little bit. The customer that comes in that has a lot of money. And everybody wants that customer that has a lot of money, but some of these customers with money get a little frisky. So I guess the things I'm going to ask you is how you handle that frisky person who wants to keep touching you and wants to keep saying, "Hey, how much to go home with me?" You don't want to be rude to that person, but you don't want to leave. You don't want to. You want to get their money. You want to get them to buy dances and things like that. And we all know that particular customer. So, in conversation, when somebody starts getting frisky with you and starts trying to get you to break rules and do things that you can't do, how do you do that in a friendly manner?
Well, you have several options. You can't always do it one way, just because everybody's so different. So you kind of read the situation based off of how things are going. You can handle it. I would say in the beginning, I just keep things very light and flirty and fun and say, oh, no, no, you can't do that, for example. Or sometimes it's easier to blame it on the club and say, like, well, I really wouldn't mind so much, but, there's cameras and, this is my workplace and I get along with these people, or I don't want you to get kicked out because we're having so much fun. There are so many different ways you can word it without just immediately getting mad and slapping the guy and then he'll leave, so then you don't get
Yeah.
the rest of the money. So, and we want to keep them there as long as possible. You want to try and prolong that, um you don't want that to happen. So you can either blame it on the club, you can say, well, I would love to, but I'm not allowed. Or you could say,
Mhm.
a lot of times this is a really good way to do it for me. I'll grab their hands and I'll be flirty and I'll put them to the side, like, you just keep those right here and I'll do the rest.
Yeah. Let me do the work here.
Let me do the work. Right. This is what you're here for. Let me entertain. Because chances are they'll respect that. 9 times out of 10, they'll understand, and they'll continue if they like you, and they'll continue to spend their money and your time, their time with you. Obviously, when things start to escalate, I have I have mastered my sarcasm or like my sassiness to a certain level, I feel like. So with certain people, I can definitely be a little bit more aggressive with them in a
Mhm.
way where I'm like, I told you no, and then they kind of like that. I'm like being feisty and I'm
Mm.
telling them they can't touch me. And I know that they're getting frisky and it's a lot of fun. And I can't imagine what it's like to be on their end. But not a lot of times it works. And you would be surprised on how much more money that customer will spend with me. And all the while I'm still continuing to stay strong and tell them no, but I have many different ways to go about that.
Very cool. And now I'm going to turn the tables on you. Do you have any, as an entertainer, do you have any questions you've always wanted to ask your DJ?
I have. For me, I look around the room and I see what's going on from my perspective. But I've always wanted to know, because you're up there and you can't hear what's going on downstairs. What do you notice when you look around the room?
The things that I look for, I'm always looking at the age, a general idea of who's in the room, demographics, things like that. Do I have older people? Do I have younger people? Do they look like rock people, hip hop people, country people? Always looking for that. I When it comes to music, if you're in a place where you can see it, I watch feet, and no, that isn't a fetish. I I watch to see if people are tapping their toes to the music. And the biggest thing that I always look for is a bored customer. And the easiest way to find, especially the customers that are by themselves in one or two, and they're sitting there with their arms crossed. That's a sign of boredom right there. And what you need to do is you need to get them to uncross their arms if you can at all do that. It's easier to fire up a room from a DJ when you've got large groups of people versus like a bunch of groups of two. Because if you go out, I'm just going to use a couple examples. If I go out with a friend of mine, we're just going out to have a couple drinks, and the DJ's up there screaming, "Come on, make some noise, party." If I'm out with one person, we're not going to be screaming and making some noise and party. And you're wasting your time trying to get us, we're just two of us here. But now if I go in there with a bachelor party group of guys, one of them's getting married, I go in there with a group of 10, 15 people. That's your group. You can get rowdy, you can get somebody scream, all that stuff, they start firing up. But to sit there and try to fire your room up and get them to make some noise and holler when they are a bunch of groups of two, you are wasting your time and giving up. I mean, might as well give it up right there. So those are some of the things that I look for. Just trying to figure out what music to play, how to talk to them, when you're talking too much, when you need to talk more, kind of things like that. I could go into a whole hour on how much to talk.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially because I'm moving around all night and I'm not just sitting in one place like that. So I do notice some of the things you say, like the foot tapping and that. And now that you say that, you're right. Like if it's a bunch of just two customers everywhere, they're like, "What do you mean? Get up and yell and let's
Yeah.
party." So the next question I have for you, Danny, is a fun one. So do you ever go into the club as a customer yourself?
Yeah, I go out of town a lot. I travel a lot. I go to other strip clubs in other parts of the country. I have many friends. I'm part of a group called Panda, which is Professional Adult Nightclub DJ Association. So I know DJs all over the country, and we like to go visit each other. Yes, I do, and I love going in as a customer. I think some of the things as a customer, if you want my opinion on what I look for, I hate the girl that just walks up and puts her arm on you and says, "Do you want to dance?" I hate when they approach me from the back. Always approach from the front. You approach somebody from the back and put your hand on their shoulder, you startle them because, that's the first bad thing. Approach from the front. Let them see that you're walking their way. Smile as you're walking up, and that way you don't catch them off guard. Don't ask if you want to dance right away. And I think a lot of things, if you catch a customer right when they get there, there's a couple of things that can happen. One, you can find out they have a lot of money and you did a great job by sitting with them. Or a lot of times people will say, maybe later, come back. Maybe later, come back does not mean no. It might mean no, but it doesn't always mean no. I
Mhm.
have a theory that says, and I do this myself. I'll go into a strip club and I'll say, I have $300 to spend tonight. The last thing I'm going to do is drop $200 in the first 15 minutes because then I got to pace myself. So if you're like me, I'm not a rich person, but if I go in, I'll have a budget. So I want that to last me a little bit. So sometimes in the very beginning, I say, no, not right now, come back later. And I really mean that. It just means I'm not ready to start getting dances and stuff yet. But come back later because you get in that last hour and you start thinking, I said I was going to spend $300 today, and I've only spent like 30. up to now.
right.
I've got $270 left that I'm ready to blow. And so that's really, I mean, knowing when a person's ready to leave and catching them 15 minutes before, that's money right there. That's gold.
Mhm.
So does that answer your question?
Yes, it
Yes,
does.
it does.
And I like
I
that you
like that
say
you
that
say that.
because you're absolutely right that maybe later doesn't mean no. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes that's another deterrent for girls. They go up, they ask right away, and they say no, maybe later. They think that means no forever. No, that
Mhm.
just means they're just getting started. Give them some time, and then come back when they're ready. And sometimes it is hard to gauge when that time will be, but that's why you keep tracking back. As
Mhm.
long as you're not making them feel too pressured, I feel like you're winning because
Yep.
that definitely keeps you on their mind. And then when they're ready, they might go, you know what? Okay, it's about that time.
Yeah.
So you never really know. But
Also
that's
ask their
interesting.
name. Yeah, ask their name, and when they say, maybe later, if you remember their name and you go back up to them an hour later and you say, "Hey, Danny, remember me? You told me to come back later," and you're kind of going to remind them that you know their name. You reminded them that they said come back later, and maybe that one will work.
Yeah.
So this
Nice.
is fun. I like doing these. We have so many questions, but what we're going to do is break this down week by week. I said I was going to do this in a 10-minute show. I know we went way over that, but we're going to try to keep it to 10. But I have so many questions, and you have so many questions. Tune in every Friday on YouTube, either Jade's channel or my channel. All the information's right there on the screen. Listen to us. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things for new entertainers, for seasoned entertainers, for DJs, things like that. So follow us, subscribe, and everything else. And next week, we are going to bring up a subject of how an entertainer gets on the good side of a DJ. Why is it important to be on the good side of a DJ? And no, I'm not just going to say tip your DJ. I'm going way beyond that. So with some of the things, and we'll have some great things. So for right now, I'm Danny. That's Jade. Thanks for tuning in to Strip Club Talk, and we will see you next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.